Bruno Madrigal is one of the most intriguing characters in Encanto. His gift of seeing the future made him a feared and avoided figure by both his own family and the surrounding community. But contrary to what many believe, Bruno wasn't the cause of the misfortunes he predicted, he simply foresaw what was coming. Take, for example, the scene where a villager mentions that after one of Bruno's visions, he ended up with a big belly. That sounds like a curse, right? But if we dig deeper, we see that Bruno simply anticipated something already underway. The villager likely had poor eating habits, and instead of changing his behavior, he chose to blame Bruno. The same goes for the priest who lost his hair. Bruno didn't make him bald, he just saw it coming. Bruno didn't cast spells. His visions were, in fact, a way to alert people to what was about to happen, giving them a chance to prepare or even change the course of events. But what made him so feared? People didn't want to face the truth. It was easier to believe Bruno was the problem than to acknowledge their own actions had consequences. This shows that the Madrigal family and those around them failed to see that their choices shaped their destinies. They preferred to hold Bruno responsible because it was easier to blame the messenger than face their own mistakes. One of the most intriguing theories about why no one talks about Bruno involves his twin sister, Pepa. Pepa has the power to control the weather, and her emotions directly affect the environment. When she's happy, the sun shines, but when she's anxious or upset, storms and winds take over. The theory suggests that the real reason no one spoke about Bruno was to protect Pepa, and consequently, the Encanto, from her emotional outbursts. Just imagine, every time someone mentioned Bruno, Pepa would be reminded of her absent brother, which filled her with sadness and anxiety. This caused a climate imbalance that could harm the entire village. So, to maintain peace and stable weather, the Madrigal family decided to avoid any talk of Bruno altogether. After all, any small memory of her brother could trigger an emotional storm in Pepa, affecting not just her, but everyone around her. While this theory has some appeal, and even makes sense within the context of the Madrigal's powers, it's important to note that it shouldn't be taken literally. The distance between Pepa and Bruno, as well as the silence surrounding his name, isn't just about Pepa's weather control, it's about something much deeper, the family's emotional dynamics. Bruno, with his gift, often revealed truths people preferred not to face, creating tension within the family, especially with Pepa, who always struggled to keep her emotions in check. The fact that no one spoke about Bruno had more to do with the discomfort around his ability to see the future and what it represented than with Pepa's powers. Still, this theory makes us reflect on the emotional impact Bruno had on his family, even in his absence, and maybe, in some way, the silence about him was a collective attempt to maintain both emotional and environmental calm. Despite being shunned and misunderstood by everyone, one thing is clear: Bruno deeply loved his family. When his visions began causing more pain than help, instead of leaving forever, Bruno made a painful decision. He chose to hide inside the walls of the casita, living in complete isolation. For him, it was the only way to protect those he loved. Bruno believed his gift was harmful. He internalized the fear and rejection from his family and community, coming to see himself as a walking bad omen. Rather than live a full life, marry, or build a family of his own, Bruno made a tremendous sacrifice. He chose solitude. He isolated himself to prevent his visions from bringing more pain to his loved ones. And that act is, in fact, a silent act of love. While in hiding, he stayed close enough to keep watching over his family. Remember the scene at Pepa's wedding when she was anxious and the weather started turning? Bruno, from his hiding place, tossed salt over her shoulder, trying to help her maintain emotional balance and ensure her big day went smoothly. He even created small good luck rituals to help during important events, always from the shadows, without anyone knowing. Bruno lived with rats and comforted himself by acting out imaginary plays, recreating family moments as a way to stay connected. This shows that, despite the physical and emotional distance, he never stopped caring about his family's happiness and well-being. He sacrificed his own joy, his chance at a normal life, so that his loved ones could live in peace, or at least try, without the threat of his visions looming over them. His choice to isolate himself shows just how much he cared. He preferred a life of solitude rather than risk causing more pain. Even believing his gift was a curse, he never stopped trying to protect his family, even if that meant hiding in the corners of the casita, completely unnoticed. Bruno's gift wasn't just a window into the future, it was a mirror to the soul of the Madrigal family. His visions, often seen as threats or curses, actually reflected the anxieties and insecurities of the other family members. The real reason no one wanted to talk about Bruno was because his predictions forced the Madrigals to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves. Think about the other family members' gifts. Isabella, the perfect one, was constantly pressured to maintain a flawless image. Luisa, the strong one, bore an unbearable weight of expectations and responsibilities. Each gift came with its own emotional burdens, something Bruno's visions often painfully exposed. When Bruno predicted something unpleasant, it wasn't because he wished harm. It was because he revealed what was already brewing in the hearts of the family. Bruno, in his solitude, observed everything from afar as the Madrigals continued dealing with their inner conflicts. His absence ironically became a constant presence. The silence around his name represented the family's denial to accept their own flaws and mistakes. They'd rather pretend Bruno and his uncomfortable truths didn't exist. It was easier to blame him than confront the pressure their gifts placed on them. However, Bruno's reunion with his family symbolizes something far deeper than just a family reconciliation. When the family finally accepts Bruno back, they're not just welcoming an unjustly exiled brother, they're embracing their own vulnerabilities and faults. By welcoming Bruno, they begin to see that their gifts aren't curses, but essential parts of who they are, and that their choices have always shaped their destinies more than any vision of the future. Bruno, being embraced again, not only reunites with his family, he offers them a chance for growth and self-awareness. Accepting Bruno marks the start of a new chapter for the Madrigals, one where they understand that the future isn't set in stone, and that instead of running from their visions, they can use them to grow, improve, and change. The rats Bruno lived with are an interesting metaphor for his situation. Rats are often associated with dark, forgotten places, just like how the family treated Bruno, as someone unwanted, hidden in Casita's shadows. But there's also duality here. Rats are intelligent and resilient, just like Bruno, who, even while excluded, found ways to survive